Good afternoon, and this is your one and only Dear Boss speaking. And of course, I'm sorry if this would be a tape version because I have to attend the extended webinar. And of course, that time for this DPinFocus live session should be at 7 in the evening, but due to ongoing conflicts in schedule, I have decided to take this into recorded version in order for you to discuss more of the love languages, and at the same time, here's the bonus safety tip right after the disclosure of my primary love language that I should say this to you. Well, of course, if you are into loving relationship with your special someone, of course, we have to know what's the love language of you and your partner. And for some reason, love languages, as described by the author Dr. Dr. Gary Chapman, that we have a 5 love languages. Coincidentally, it's also a registered trademark for the Northfield Publishing. And due to lack of the required permissions to disclose everything, of course, it's hard to stay in love after you fall for the first time or second time around. But moreover, here are the 5 love languages that you need to know. First up is the words of affirmation. You say any words that would fill him or her loved. And of course, the second is the quality time. That means to say you're spending time with one another. And the third is the receiving gifts. The fourth is the physical touch. Receiving gifts would mean some sort of gift or gifts that may be received by your partner. And of course, the physical touch, as we all know, that you have to hug or kiss or do anything that's more physical. But here's the problem with the physical touch here during this pandemic, wherein we cannot hug, we cannot kiss, and such physical distancing may cause your relationship unless it is mitigated by other backup love languages. But thankfully, what I'm doing here as a media ministry servant and of course volunteer mapper, and at the same time studying, is that the primary love language for me as a producer, content creator, and host for DPinFocus live session is the acts of service. You know why? Here's the story behind this. I have to open my heart to those who will going to join with me, especially when it comes to service. And of course, it got started in the middle of the recovery from the cyberbullying disaster way back April to May 2017, as I have to start with the OpenStreetMap, a novice or rookie editor, and now a mapper already, also a deputy mapper for the mental health awareness, and also a church media ministry servant that sometimes, if there would be some sort of technical errors, that this high performance laptop from DP24 base has been used as a backup already. And speaking of acts of service, here's the truth. Doctors, nurses, and even firefighters, police and military, media, and even the other frontline workers working on site, especially on the supermarket, grocery stores, and even markets, or wet and dry markets rather, that they are selflessly serving one another despite these tough challenges. And of course, we have to steer away from the rest of the love languages in order for us, especially on the acts of service, to be discussed more further along, especially on what happened last Wednesday, that I'm very sad to say this, that despite the selfless dedication and love for the countrymen, or fellow countrymen rather, that chemical leak have caused, or lost rather, our two souls. They have passed away. And of course, it's a heartbreaking moment for those who are serving with us, especially the firefighters are dealing with the chemical leak, especially the ammonia, that could be very fatal if exposed to prolonged inhalation. And of course, as a public service program, speaking itself as a safety and security for all of our dear audiences watching on the Cider premiere episode or the replay edition. You know what? Here's the tips that you have to deal with the chemical leaks. Hopefully, this will not happen to all of our homes or businesses or schools or universities or colleges. But for some reason, only the qualified and trained personnel could deal properly with such chemicals that if there would be a mistake in either inhalation or swallowing, it could aggravate the symptoms that would either result into prolonged complications and even death. Now here's the correct way to deal with the chemical leak. You have to open immediately the ventilation and of course seal all of the leaking part if able to do so, but of course symptoms may appear, especially the difficulty in breathing. You have to wear the specialized personal protective equipment. Not just only this ordinary mask, not just only the ordinary face shield, but of course we have to use the goggles and even such other specialized inhalation equipment that includes the oxygen tank that is recommended, especially if you're going to deal with the chemical leaks, fires, and of course proper labeling has to be going through the process, especially if it contains hazardous or poisonous or corrosive types of hazardous materials that we have to deal with. And if you're into the cargo trucking business of transporting such hazardous chemicals, do not ever pass through those tunnels and even the underneath of the elevated expressway. That is very dangerous for the human health and lives if in case of a sudden emergency. And so we have to deal with our everyday LPG usage. We have to check the hose for some sort of leak by using the soap and a towel. And of course, if the bubble gets into the way of the part of the tube, that means there's a high risk of leak and it has to be replaced right away. LPG regulators have to be inspected as well, and also the cooking equipment and other everyday kitchen appliances that uses the LPG. And for those who are in the business that handles the chemicals, whether it is an oil or gasoline or diesel or even ammonia or refrigerants, well, sufficient ventilation is a must. Going back to the primary love language of acts of service, of course, I tend to do some sort of verbal warnings to all of the errant motorists or pedestrians disobeying rules. You know what? Sometimes that's not enough for us, especially the safety and security advocates, and also the accessibility advocate as well. When I have encountered such forms of corridor blockages, what I have to do is to stop on the predetermined stop line, and then I have to warn the person next to one another, and I might say, please do not block the corridor way. Someone might be passing from one place to another, but not in the case. And if you can see me doing these summons instead of judging, why not try to thank me for those reminders or life-saving reminders? Most especially when yesterday or a day ago wherein me and my mom have proceeded to the coffee shop in SM Dasma, and of course there's somebody while I'm alone, there's somebody's trying to breach into the physical distancing protocol, and I was like, what is this happening? Why they are trying to get close to me for no reason? And of course, I have decided to summon them to keep distance, and then they have followed it right away. But while I was going to eat or drink, face mask off, but the face shield gets into this position in order to have an emergency dropping in case there's somebody's going to breach into the protocol. And then if I would take some food or drink, I would raise this shield like this, and there you go. But never do the upraised face shield, especially if you're at the outdoors. Oh my goodness me. We are still at the pandemic disaster. You have to wear the face shield properly. And here's how. If you have a face mask, apologies if you can't hear me properly, but we have to do this protocol of wearing a face mask and also a face shield. So there we go, as a way of wearing this personal protective equipment properly. And for those who are in the construction site, this is how you should wear the face shield, equipped hard hat, and of course, it has to cover the whole face itself, and we have to check it out before we drop this neck protector. And the setting is hereby applied only for the dangerous situation, especially if you're in a construction site or at the train tracks or a bus station or in rescue missions that requires you to wear this specialized hard hat with a face shield. And for those who are on the motorcycle, a standard helmet is hereby applied. So there you go. And if you're going to this episode of DPinFocus live session, of course, I would like to appreciate and thank you to all those frontline workers who are still serving with us, especially at these trying times. And let's see that if we could get into the normalization of this situation, and in this Valentine's month, not necessarily with your special someone, maybe with your family or friend or relatives, could be done via Zoom instead. Maybe you could start the live streaming or do some sort of TikTok. And by the way, here's the hashtag Dear Paul Does TikTok is now available. And of course, all of these are on DP24 GTV TikTok page. Whereas I have to do some sort of behind the scenes and even the challenges that you might find it amusing and one more things for sure is that in this recorded medium, I would rather have to stamp out the Philippine Standard Time of the recent recording to avoid some sort of cheating and for me to validate those timelines that we have to be done. And of course, I'm not 100% sure if I could go back here for the live session or for the remainder of this live session rather. So for the next week, we could have to discuss the advices on dating and love, especially if you're decided to go to dating on a new normal, better normal situation, and that even includes any sort of dating apps that you can use. So keep it here on DPinFocus live session, not only for these advices but also for the safety and security tips as well. And of course, story that I have to, you know, going through those times that I'm still at the university, wherein I have to tell some sort of secrets to you. And yes, of course, for privacy protection purposes, I'll not disclose her name here on this broadcast until she have agreed to do so. And so without further ado for this March so safety related topics, not just for women but also for men as well. And of course, every March is the Women's Month. This is your Derpol from Dasmariñas City. And we have to be safe, be well, stay sane and dry. And of course, you are loved.